And now Mike DeCourcy from BTN, as well as the Sporting News. And I'm sure he's got probably a few other titles we could throw in there if we wanted to. How are you doing, brother?
Oh, I'm hanging in there, man. I will tell you, I probably, like in my life, I kind of train for March. Like everything builds up to March, so I know March. I have enough energy stored up for March. I'm expecting it, but college basketball World Cup coinciding in November, my body can't handle it, man. I'm hanging on by a thread.
Mike, I give you credit for wearing your Steelers shirt. It's kind of like when I used to wear my Jets stuff last year. The tables have kind of turned now. The Jets are 6-3, and the Steelers are what?
3-6. So that is literally the tables turning. Yes.
Well, sometimes that has to, even for the Steelers, they have to have down years, although it seems like they never do.
Well, Tomlin has been there since 2007 and has never had a losing season. And they have not had one as an organization since 2003. So that gives you an idea of what it's been like. And of course, it's much like Kentucky now, where every loss, what's interesting is every loss at Kentucky is a tragedy. But you go 26-8, and it doesn't mean anything unless you win in the tournament. So that's a nice little trap they got set there. Not all of them, of course, just the few.
I saw a tweet you'd sent out not earlier today. Happy birthday to Jim Boeheim, who took over Syracuse basketball when you were a sophomore in high school.
Yes. Look at me. Look at me. I was a sophomore in high school when he started, and that was when he was head coach. He was an assistant when I was still in junior high. But he's been a head coach since I was a sophomore in high school. That's just amazing. I don't even know what to say to that. I can say this. I will not be, all those titles you mentioned before, I will not be filling them when I am 78 years old. I can promise you that.
Well, that's a good run. I hope that I'm not, but probably will. But as you mentioned, lots going on. The convergence of college basketball and football alone is enough to keep us busy right now. Indiana basketball, of course, getting started. Haven't played anyone of note just yet, but their first test coming up Friday against tomorrow. I keep forgetting what day we are. Xavier and Sean Miller up in Cincinnati on the road, so that gives a little bit of a test. I think Indiana is still a superior team by, I'm saying, 12 points. A little
bit of a test at Cintas Center against a team that has 4 veteran starters and a 5th who's new to the program but has played 3 years of college basketball. No, it's a heck of a test. If they get out of there with a W, it'll be a heck of a win. Let me tell you. The team was not in the tournament last year, but they probably should have been. They were on my mock probably at one point a 6 or so in late January, early February, and they fell all the way out. So the fact they didn't play in the tournament last year is not indicative of what they were capable of. It's a really strong team. Now they have weaknesses. They maybe aren't the most dynamic team in the front court. So they may struggle to keep up with Trace, Malik Renault, maybe a little bit. They may have a little bit of trouble staying in front of, say, Jalen Hood-Schifino. But Colby Jones is if it's Colby Jones that guards Jalen, then that statement doesn't hold, because Jalen Hood-Schifino is terrific, but Colby Jones, one of my favorite players in college basketball. I love what he does. So it's a real challenge. And I've been to Cintas many times. I lived in Cincinnati. I don't remember exactly when they opened it. So they opened it around 99. So I lived in Cincinnati for 15 years after they opened it. So I was there scores of times. And it's a heck of a hard place to win a basketball game if you aren't wearing an X on your jersey. So it'll be a real test for the Hoosiers. And if they can survive that, it's a great sign for what's coming ahead.
And for Xavier, they know that this would be a gigantic win on their side for the tournament seeding, for just going forward, for confidence, for their season. That's that would be a gigantic, huge win for them.
Yeah, I mean, their great rival is Cincinnati. And that's a game that they often point toward. Now, okay, so coming out of last night when Cincinnati lost to Northern Kentucky, a little bit of steam goes out of that. So maybe you're thinking that one's not so tough. And if you do get that one, maybe it doesn't carry as much weight as it did 4 or 5 years ago. So you've got to, this is an opportunity for the Musketeers that they might not have a lot of on their schedule that'll come anywhere near this. Now, obviously there's their league. Big East has some good teams. Villanova, Creighton's going to be great. But this is a real opportunity for them, and they won't get many of these. You only get everybody only gets so many unless you're Tom Izzo and you're playing, the 67 Celtics and the 72 Lakers, etc. You only get so many, so they're going to put a lot into this. And look, I'm not saying that Indiana can't go down there and win. I'm just saying that they have to be on their attention. They have to be really detail oriented, and they have to use the advantages they do have in the front court in terms of elusiveness, dynamism. The Xavier players in the front court are very skilled offensively. Zach Fremantle, really skilled, but he'll struggle to keep up with Trace if that's the matchup. Jack Nunge, everybody who follows the Hoosiers will probably remember from his time at Iowa. Big, super skilled. But if Malik is out there, does he keep up with them? Those are the things that Indiana has to enforce. They have a quickness advantage at every front court position. They have a quickness advantage. But when you start talking about the backcourt, Xavier can hold up there. They've got good quickness, good speed. They should be able to hold up there. So I think what Trace does, what Race does, what Malik does, those are the things that will make the biggest difference for the Hoosiers.
Mike, what's interesting is that Xavier is also going out to the PK85 in Portland. So they get Florida actually on Thanksgiving night, which is kind of interesting. So I told Jim to give me a scouting report. But the Sean Miller factor too, him coaching them. What are your thoughts about just what he will bring in that matchup?
Well, it's hard. Remember, coaching it's not always an immediate thing. The best coaches, what they do, I mean, they can make some strategic adjustments, but Sean Miller is a guy who's going to change players over time. He's going to infuse the toughness and the intelligence over time. Now, he can make a significant difference immediately, but the greatest difference from someone like him will come over time. If you look back to when he took over Arizona, second year is when it really kicked in at Arizona. They had a team that wasn't super talented, but made the Elite Eight in his second year, 2011. And in his time at Xavier, they really struggled right out of the gate. And second year, they struggled much of the year, and then it started to click in, and they finished with an incredible February and won the Atlantic 10 tournament in March. And then from there, it all just started to roll downhill for Xavier basketball in the best sense of the word. It didn't go downhill; it rolled downhill. Everything became easy to an extent. The players got better, the team got better. They make the Elite Eight into 2008 and Sweet 16 in 2009. So I think his best work is over time. And so I'm not sure that I think they'll be better in this game than they might have been otherwise. But I wouldn't say that right now you'll see the full effect of what he's eventually going to bring to Xavier basketball.
You mentioned Zach Fremantle earlier. He had a triple-double in their game, in their win over Fairfield. 15 points, 13 boards, and 10 assists. Very obviously their centerpiece. And it'll be. I wonder who's going to draw the assignment on him. If it's going to be Race Thompson or whomever that is.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be Trace because I'm not. Nunge plays on the perimeter a lot because he's a really good shooter.
Which that's where Race will be.
So I think it's going to have to be Trace. And, you don't always want your best player to be exposed to potential of foul trouble. But as I said, I mean, Fremantle's really skilled. He can pass the ball, he can shoot it, he can handle it. But can he go by a guy like Trace? I don't think so. Not very. I mean, not. I'm not saying he's never going to get by him, but on a regular basis, I don't think so. So I think that matchup shouldn't be a problem for him in terms of getting into foul trouble. That doesn't mean he gets it done. You know, when you get screened and people run action like that, then all of a sudden it becomes a team thing. You know, how do you stay in the play? Do you switch? All that kind of stuff. But I think that's the matchup that makes the most sense based on skill sets and what you have to offer. And
also, Kobe Jones did not play in that game for Xavier. He is a junior, preseason, all Big East selection at the guard spot for them. Averaged 13.5 points, 7 assists through the first 2 games. He didn't play in that game, so they didn't have his services either. So if he's able to come back, that'll make a difference for them. But how healthy he is, that may make a big determination as well.
People overlook how important health is and how important it is to be at your best. Kentucky's played Tuesday night. First game they had with Oscar Tshiebwe. Xavier Wheeler only played a half or so against Duquesne. Damian Collins was coming back off the passing of his father. So they did not have as much practice time. And on the opposite side, Michigan State, they really need Jaden Akins to be a 1 or 1A option to be their best. And he missed almost the entire preseason. And I think actually I should say the entire preseason with an injury, and is only coming back now and did some good things. But if you're not whole, it's really hard to be ready for these games because you're already behind in terms of you're not where you want to be in terms of development. That's why a lot of teams play a lot of bye games at this time of year, because they know they're not ready. They know they're not at their best. And it's one thing to play a team. You're playing some of your most important games in terms of your March seeding or your March selection, and you're playing them before you're ready. So you're kind of taking the chance that they'll be as behind as you. So I understand why teams play bye games to get themselves prepared for the biggest games. And so Indiana had a few of those, so maybe they're ready for them. But now for Xavier, they had 3 scheduled, and Kobe Jones is not out there. We may not be who we're supposed to be.
We're seeing in the state of Florida, Mike, that some of these bye games are far from guarantees, right? The team I cover, Florida, lost to FAU. Stetson beat FSU. That they have a lot of problems. They have players hurt, suspended, and so forth, and everything.
Stetson, like that. And Stetson's star was Luke Brown from Black Hawk Christian, and he put up 27 off the bench, I think. And then the next game, he put up another 20-point game for Stetson.
He was born to score. You know that.
I'm telling you, it's what he does. It's what he does.
Unbelievable. But
what's up?
What does it just say about? Is there a little bit of parity in the game? You think more than we think, or is this just a blip because, like you said, teams aren't ready?
Yeah, I think it's especially this year. I'm not sure what changed in college basketball that our first games were March 7th. That's as early as I can remember it beginning.
Yeah.
I think that's as I said on another show the other day. I'm like, look, I could get college hoops in the middle of July, but November 7th was early for me. I mean, it's like, really, we're already going. So I can see where for the teams that's a challenge as well to be as ready as possible.